Hey, good people. Thanks for tuning in. A lot of people are sending me the same question, asking me if I suspect anything for this September 11th. And rather than tell you what I think, I will share with you what I know.
Okay, so before we get into September 11th, let's look at March 11th in history. And the reason we're doing that is because March 11th, 3/11, and September 11th, 9/11 are often paired together in history. It should be noted that USA, the acronym in gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words, equals 311. UK equals 311. Things such as the KKK consist of 311s because K is the 11th letter. Bank of America's symbol is made up of 311s. They own Visa. The gematria of Visa is 33. Think about what 3 times 11 is. On March 11th in history, in 1665, it was the year New York granted religious freedoms to Protestants, a major thing at the time. In the history of the United States, they say a lot of people came here because of freedom of religion. That whole concept started on March 11th. 1798 was Washington, D.C. was officially designed. The design was finished by Benjamin Banneker. The gematria of his name is 66. If you've seen my other post, you've learned about the significance of that in this country. The Indian Affairs Bureau was established on 1824. All these dates are March 11th, remember. The word Indian equals 33. That was a branch for the military at the time. On 1892, the nation's very first basketball game was played in Springfield, Massachusetts. Massachusetts is one of 3 states with a 33 gematria. At the time, there was only 2. Hawaii did not exist yet. Let's see. 1917, the UK occupied Baghdad for the first time. Baghdad is located directly on the 33rd parallel north. And in 1918, the capital of Russia moved from St. Petersburg to Moscow. Also on this date was the record number of transactions in 1986 for Wall Street. The record was later broken, though, that year on September 11th. So the record was broken on March 11th and then rebroken on September 11th. This list right here is just a short list. Down in the comments, I'm going to link significant posts about March 11th and September 11th in this nation's history. There's a lot there. But remember, what I'm talking about right now is this, to establish the connection between March 11th and September 11th. All right, so with regards to World War II, on March 11th is when the Lend-Lease Act was signed by FDR. And what that was essentially a declaration that the United States was becoming involved in World War II on the side of the Allies. They agreed to let all Allied ships use their ports. They resupplied the Allies, and they made this agreement with the Allies as well as the Chinese forces. So Chinese aren't talked a lot in World War II, but they were essentially on the side of the Allies. Um, Later that year, on September 11th, FDR took it a step further, and he said that the U.S. Navy could attack any Axis enemies and ships within within waters limits. Also on this day, the Pentagon construction began. So the Navy is essentially involved in World War II at this point, but Pearl Harbor hasn't happened. And just think about that in history. Pearl Harbor is said to be the event that got the United States involved in World War II, but look at this. March 11th is almost 9 full months, almost 9 full months before December 7th, the date of Pearl Harbor. So you guys, our history is just always fake. They're always giving us nonsense. If your country is helping allies and you give the go to attack Axis ships, wouldn't you say you're in the war? It almost seems like the Axis troops did us a favor by giving us 3 more months before they did anything to us, right? You guys, our history is fake. So, World Trade Center. As a kid growing up before 9/11 happened, the biggest piece of history I knew about, the biggest tragedies I knew about were World War II. Well, that was all placed by the World Trade Center, which, if you go back in history, is all about March 11th and September 11th as well. March 11th, David Rockefeller proposed the World Trade Center complex project. And his brother, or not his brother, his cousin was the governor, Nelson Rockefeller, the 49th governor of New York, born July 8th, 1908. If you had 7 plus 8 plus 1 plus 9 plus 0 plus 8, it sums to 33. He has a life number of 33, like many leaders. On March 11th, it was proposed. The next day, Nelson Rockefeller accepted it, gave it the go along with the Port Authority. Years later, 40 years later, September 11th, 2001, what happens to the World Trade Center complex? They are destroyed by demolition in the greatest psyops, the greatest hoax of our time. And to date, there's been no justice for that. We've just stolen our own liberties, gone to war for needless reasons, and squandered a lot of money. And the villains responsible for it all are still out there. There was no Osama bin Laden, you guys. His name sums to 47, just like Building 7 that flew that day. It's all a hoax. The phrase cave dweller, you remember when they used to call him a cave dweller? That also sums to 47. Stuff's all gematria, you guys. With regards to the World Trade Center buildings, they were 110 stories tall, the two tallest towers. The name Rockefeller in gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words, sums to 110. Words like president sum to 110 and 47. Building 7, the building that fell 8 hours later in the day, was 47 floors tall, just like the name Osama bin Laden. So, September 11th, on March 11th, 2002, a 33-night tribute to light began. That's where they shot the two giant purple beams in the air. All this information is connected down in the comments. So 33-night tribute to light, which began on March 11th, 2002, ended on the night of April 14th. That's the night the Titanic sunk. That's the night Abraham Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater. So curious, you got to ask yourself, why would they do a 33-night tribute to light and end it on the night of the Abraham Lincoln and Titanic incident? Also curious is that exactly 911 days after September 11th, 2001 was the March 11th, 2004 Madrid train bombings. The third train to blow up that day, you can go look in the official report, was number 311. Number 311. All right. So, moving on to current September 11th, let's go back in history to Fukushima disaster March 11th, 2011. September 11th, 2014 is going to be exactly 42 months since March 11th. And if you've ever read Revelation, you know 42 months is a significant number. It's mentioned in Revelation 13, the same big passage that mentions the number 666 the only time in the Bible. The significance of 42 months is that Revelation is told about in a 7-year period of time, and half of 7 years is 3.5 years, or 42 months. 42 months is 3.5 years. That the 42 months is also referenced another way in Revelation as 1,260 days. So they're trying to bring an emphasis to it for some apparent reason. And this 42-month span is going to be in effect come September 11th, 2001. The other thing that's curious to me about this date is another way that we take the numerology of dates. I've taught the method where you sum each single digit in the whole date and calculate a value. There's another method in numerology where you just take it as you would write it normally, and you just add each number whole. So 9 plus 10 plus 14. This is tomorrow's date. Tomorrow's date's going to have a 33 numerology this way. Earlier this year on 8/11/14, 8 plus 11 plus 14 sums to 33, Robin Williams was found dead. The name Robin Williams in gematria sums to 66, which has a major connection with 33, because if you write out the word 33, Thirty, Three, change it all into numbers as I teach, and then sum it, it sums to 66. This year, Robin Williams was commemorated at the 66th Emmy Awards. Probably not a coincidence. Anyhow, September 11th, 14, following the same method, is going to have a numerology of 34. One day more, one greater numerology. The thing about 34 is we are currently in the 34th anniversary of the Georgia Guidestones. They are located on the 34th parallel north. The number 34 is the ninth Fibonacci number. Those are Those are the numbers that make up essentially everything. If you're not familiar with the Fibonacci sequence, please check that one up. I'll link it in the comments as well. So anyway, to answer the question, is anything going to go down September 11th? I'll tell you what. Since it's the 42-month anniversary of Fukushima and the 13-year anniversary of September 11th, 2001, and I know that these people like to go by the numbers, I do suspect that something will happen in the world. And if it's Fukushima related, that would not surprise me one bit, because about a year ago at this time, they were talking about the cleanup project they were beginning for Fukushima. They were saying how it would go through at least the end of 2014, and it presented the possibility that if anything goes wrong during the cleanup, that it could be a worldwide catastrophe. Now, if that's true or not, I don't know, but I do know that in the media they like to scare us, and this September 11th is looking like a possible date for fear. The other thing I'm thinking, knowing about what happened with MH370 earlier this year, is I'm thinking something could possibly, if something does happen, it could happen late in the evening on September 10th in the United States and early in the day in Japan on September 11th. With regards to MH370, it was the 66th day of the year. Remember that number 66, like I just talked about, that the story was broken in the United States, but it was the 67th day of the year where the plane actually crashed. In gematria, the word water equals 67, as does the word organic, as does the word language. So anyway, it's a number of significance to these people. And the fact that the plane went down in water, it might not have been an accident that it went down on the 67th day. So I'm going to put a lot of stuff down in the comments for you guys to read. I hope this was informative. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks as always, guys.